Tottenham Hotspur have thrashed Aston Villa by 4 goals to 1, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at how they did it, including the tactical setup that Tottenham used to not only stop Aston Villa but also get themselves the win. A key reason for why Tottenham were able to dominate Aston Villa in the way that they did was due to the way that they managed to impose themselves on the game, the way that they managed to get their aggression into the game and really put Villa on the back foot. Take this for example. We have them in their 4-2-3-1, but it's what they did from a defensive point of view that was so very impressive. Aston Villa at this current point in time have a goal kick. They're lined up as such. They have 2 players in the box in Konsa and Pau Torres. Cash and Digne are in their natural positions. They have passing lanes towards Onana and Tielemans, but it's what Tottenham did to really combat this that made Villa regress that little bit more. Instead of having them in their 4-2-3-1, what you saw was Kulusevski pinning onto Tielemans on this right hand side, Sarr coming forwards onto Onana, and Bentancur coming centrally. Now this did a couple of things. Kulusevski was then on Tielemans, Sarr was then on Onana, and you had Bentancur onto Rodgers. This did an incredible job of preventing Aston Villa from playing passes through into midfield. And once you block those passing lanes, it's then making it that little bit more difficult for Villa to play out. So you've got Martinez's pass into Pau Torres, you've got Martinez's pass into Konsa, but Solanke with his pressure is able to go towards these spaces and prevent any major progression from happening. You've then got the passes to Matty Cash and Luca Digne. But in this instance, what you had was Son coming a bit more central, Johnson coming a bit more central, and what they did was just prevent these passing lanes here. It did this to such an extent that it started to suffocate Villa and prevent them from really playing out and progressing the ball from the back of the pitch, forcing Emi Martinez to go long. But the issue with that was really clear, because once Martinez went long and tried to hit Watkins, when you had Bentancur onto Rodgers, you had either Draguzin or you had Romero to be able to be aggressive in the header, in the aerial duel, to be able to win the ball back. This then kept Villa in their own half and allowed Tottenham to progress from a far more attacking situation. So in short, they couldn't play it out the back from the get-go, from any kind of goal kick, and if they did decide to go long, this was also an area that Tottenham were dominant in, preventing Aston Villa from building up phases of play and then making sure that Tottenham were imposing themselves with their aggressive off-the-ball nature. This defensive aggression and tactical setup is actually what led to Tottenham Hotspur's 3rd goal, and we can see this here. Even though this isn't from a goal kick and it's actually a few yards out, the principles of play still apply, and we can see them being utilised by Tottenham here. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 midfielders, and they're going to be pressing onto Aston Villa and preventing them from playing through the centre of the pitch. You've got Brennan Johnson, who's come infield. This is to stop the progression of play through the centre. You've got Kulusevski, who's going to be onto Tielemans, and you've got Sarr, who's going to be onto Onana. These players can't receive the ball. Jacob Ramsey has actually made a move infield to allow Luca Digne to come on the outside, and that is a normal principle of play that Aston Villa utilise. Yves Bissouma has noticed this, and he's going to start to get aggressive. It's this tenacious ability and the marking of these players that prevented Aston Villa from being able to take any kind of space and any kind of progress through the pitch. As this ball gets played from Pau Torres, you've got 1 and you've got 2 players immediately trying to converge up onto Jacob Ramsey. You've got Bissouma and you've got Kulusevski. This is so good. And then what you're looking at is what happens next. So Bissouma tackles him, it actually goes straight back to Pau Torres, and Tottenham reset. They go again. So you've got Bissouma here. You've got Kulusevski who's ready to take this. You've got Sarr who's always ready to pounce onto Onana. And instead, Pau Torres tries to play this pass into Onana and it gets intercepted. The moment this happens, you've got problems. The moment Pape Matar Sarr manages to get this, you've got issues because it takes a number of players out of the game. Tielemans is out. You've got Onana out. you've got Konsa desperately trying to sprint back, and this is where Richarlison comes into the game, because now you've got a transition, now you've got a turnover, and it's the speed in which Tottenham managed to transition that was so very impressive. As this progresses, the ball gets played through into Richarlison because Aston Villa aren't set. Although they have a very good defensive line and they have very good defensive protocols, Tottenham managed to exploit this due to the way that they were able to turn over the ball so very efficiently. As the ball gets played through, Richarlison has a choice to make. Does he take a shot or does he cross it into the box? Instead, he creates the best option and plays it in towards Dominic Solanke, who is on running. It's a great pass, great vision, and Solanke manages to get a tap in. But it all comes from that defensive aggression and those defensive protocols that Tottenham instilled from minute one. Because Aston Villa were relinquishing the ball so frequently, it naturally allowed Tottenham to start to gain a lot of attacking momentum, in particular down this left-hand flank. And this is to really isolate both Matty Cash and John McGinn. The role of Destiny Udogie was really important here, because not only would he start to make overlapping runs, but also infield runs in this inside left channel. This is down to Pape Matar moving infield quite a bit, but still taking up an attacking role when Tottenham have the ball. This pressurised Amadou Onana to come infield, and occasionally you'd see this run from Udogie, and it would be looking for a pass from Heung-min Son or even from Sarr himself, in behind this Aston Villa back line, which was continuously regressing due to the lack of possession that they continuously managed to have. Sarr dropping back on occasion to really deal with the threat of Rodgers meant that Udogie still had a good option to go forwards and really take this space that was afforded to them. It's a natural amount of space that Tottenham utilised their fullbacks for, and Udogie did it brilliantly. It was this left-hand side that really started to carve open opportunities for Tottenham, and again, it was the relinquishing of the ball from Aston Villa that allowed this just to ramp up, and the pressure began to rise. It was this pressure down the left-hand side that started to show dividends first off, and this was the build-up to Tottenham's first goal. You've got Destiny Udogie who's playing the ball into Heung-min Son, who's staying really far and wide. Matty Cash has a big problem here, because does he A, stick with his defenders and drop back, or does he B, try to get aggressive on Heung-min Son with the knowledge that he needs his defenders in John McGinn and Amadou Onana to come and help him out? He instead decides to stay with his defenders, and as the play progresses, you've got Destiny Udogie coming up to double up with Heung-min Son. It's this double up and the lack of aggression from Matty Cash and from John McGinn that allows Heung-min Son to get across into the box. We know how good he is with his left foot, but at the same time, when this cross comes in, I want you to notice a couple of things. Because Dominic Solanke has pinned himself onto Pau Torres, and you've got Brennan Johnson onto Luca Digne, but in particular, look at Digne. Because he's not paying attention to Brennan Johnson, he's just ambling his way through, and Luca Digne has no idea whatsoever. It's really good movement from the right-hand striker, midfielder, however you want to classify Johnson, but he's really, really good at just drifting into that space, and then it's about the cross. The cross is sublime, but as we move this on, he actually gets a run on Luca Digne, and Digne isn't ready. He switches off at the wrong moment, and when this cross comes in, it's then curtains. Brennan Johnson does a fantastic job of then getting to the ball, and Tottenham are 1-0 up. But there are things that Aston Villa really could have worked on, but Tottenham exploited them pretty brilliantly. Before we end, let's take a look at Tottenham's other two goals that allowed them to cement their position in this match. I'm of course talking about the second goal and the fourth. Let's begin with the second. So, we have Amadou Onana with the ball, and Aston Villa are currently attempting to counter-attack Tottenham after they've committed men forwards to an attack. Amadou Onana tries to play the ball into Ollie Watkins, but again, remember what I mentioned about Tottenham's aggression. You've got Ben Davies, who got substituted on, coming out really aggressive, really quick, and he wins the ball high up. Super important. That's the first thing. When this ball comes out to a Tottenham player, you've then got a number of questions. What does Sarr do with it? He drives forwards into the heart of this Aston Villa defence, and the positioning of a load of these players means that Aston Villa can't really be too aggressive. You've got Destiny Udogie, who's making a nuisance of himself in this left-hand channel, you've got Kulusevski, who's also going to be making a run as well, and you've got Brennan Johnson. Notice Brennan Johnson here. He's come in centrally. Now, Onana and Tielemans haven't noticed this, and Jacob Ramsey hasn't done a good enough job of following his fellow winger. But in this particular instance, you've got Sarr, who drives on infield, and he plays the ball into Brennan Johnson. Now, whether it's a bad touch or it's a decent pass, it actually ends up finding its way to Dejan Kulusevski. Notice Dominic Solanke here, though, because he sees this, and he's going to make a darting run in behind this Aston Villa back line. Now, I think Aston Villa have one of the best back lines in terms of offside traps in Europe. I think they're absolutely fantastic about it. But in this particular instance, the line wasn't perfectly set, and Solanke took advantage of this. As he runs round the Aston Villa centre-back, you've got a great pass that comes in from Kulusevski through into this channel. And it's from there that Dominic Solanke was able to do his best work. Just look at this. Look at this pass right here. It gets played through. It's great vision from Kulusevski, but it's also a fantastic run from Solanke. Really well done on both accounts. And then it's about the finish, because you've got Dominic Solanke in a 1v1 with Emi Martinez. Again, one of the best goalkeepers, I'd say, in Europe currently. He manages to chip Emi Martinez in fantastic fashion, and you've got to imagine that that's Dominic Solanke announcing his arrival at Tottenham Hotspur. Really, really good stuff. And of course, let's round this out by taking a look at this James Maddison free kick. This was 4-1 to Tottenham, and this is how they did it. There isn't too much to look into here, but I do believe there are a couple of things to notice. The first one being the positioning of Emi Martinez. Now, I think that goalkeepers get a bad rap, but I've just got to say that I think he's a bit too far over. I understand he's trying to have the best vision possible to see past the wall, to be able to see the ball, to know where it's going to go round. But that's a lot of the goal to be leaving. Surely, that's a lot. And considering the closeness of the free kick, it surprised me the positioning that Emi Martinez took up. The second thing was the quickness that James Maddison took this free kick with. He didn't take any time. He didn't line himself up, and he took a couple of steps and just whipped it. Now, that's really, really good, but I think it was so fast that it almost caught Martinez off guard, and it almost caught some other players off guard. Basuma doesn't look quite set. Solanke isn't quite set, and it just made me wonder whether the speed in which Maddison took that just gave him a second advantage. And then as he hits the ball, look at this. He's about to move on. And as he kicks it, I just don't think Martinez is perfectly set, to the point where when the ball is in mid-flight, and in fact we have another still in a second, when the ball is actually just a few inches away, or I suppose more than a few inches, but you get my point, away from Emi Martinez, he hasn't jumped. And that can only mean that I think Maddison has done a great job and just caught Martinez off guard for a second. And it's that second that has given him the advantage. It's a brilliantly taken free kick, don't get me wrong. And I still think even if Martinez is just a little bit over, I still think Maddison scores. Just a couple of things that I noticed that were absolutely brilliant from Tottenham. It gets launched into the net. And again, I think goals look a whole lot better when the goalkeeper doesn't jump. Am I just the only one? Let me know if you think that as well. And of course, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I thought Tottenham were absolutely phenomenal. They were brilliant, and eventually they thoroughly deserved the win through all of the tactics and all of the real dynamism that they had throughout the game. But of course, let me know what you guys thought in the comment section below. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, my friends, take care.